So many people are getting wealthy, sometimes fabulously wealthy, holding, trading, earning interest on their cryptocurrency. We're getting a record number of folks coming to us here at Nomad Capitalist who want an escape plan. They want, if not a plan A, certainly a plan B that gives them a way to preserve all the money they're making in crypto. But yet, some folks in the community still believe that they will outsmart the tax man, outsmart their regulators, and I'm going to tell you today why I believe that's not a good plan. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. I'm the author of this book on Amazon, and here at Nomad Capitalist, we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors, whether it's cryptocurrency or otherwise, who want to legally go where you're treated best. You can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. Now, speaking of legally, a couple years ago, somebody skewered me, let's say, by saying, "You're the goody two-shoes of the offshore industry," claiming that I was a little bit too transparent, a little bit too clean, looking to be too open with the government, with the tax man. I believe in doing things legally. They have to come in illegally. Now, I took that as a badge of honor that it was not intended as, and it's that lens that I look at all the people who are making money in cryptocurrency, and I say, I think that there are some potential pitfalls with all this wealth that you are creating that you want to be aware of, that for me justified the idea of having a second residence, potentially leaving your country and going and living and being a taxpayer of another country where you are a resident, having a second passport as a backup plan for when your country decides to come after part of your wealth, moving some of your non-crypto investments overseas. And the reason I say that is because you have, especially this year, so many new taxes coming out. Elizabeth Warren, for example, in the US wants to have a wealth tax, $50 million or more. You're going to pay a percentage of your wealth every year. And if you're in crypto, I mean, you could have had $1 million a year or two ago, and it could be relatively close to $50 million for some of you now. It's not that difficult. Even growing businesses, consulting businesses, e-commerce businesses, can grow pretty quickly. And those kind of wealth tax thresholds won't be that hard to hit. Higher capital gains taxes, unrealized capital gains taxes being proposed. Now, what I hear from people is, but I'm in crypto, it's private, I'm just not going to tell anyone. And so, my concern with that, first of all, is look at what's happening. Just take the United States, for example. We're going to have a tax return where they're going to ask you, have you purchased or traded or invested in cryptocurrency or other digital assets? Now, there were some people trying to dissect that, but the question is pretty straightforward. Are you holding cryptocurrency? Are you trading cryptocurrency? For me, the question for a lot of people in the crypto space is going to come down to, if you insist on staying in your country, are you going to lie? Are you going to sign under penalty of perjury? Are you going to defraud the IRS, the ATO, the CRA, HMRC, whomever it may be in your country? For me, and I've interviewed a lot of crypto people, and I've talked to a lot of crypto people who, they want to sleep well at night. When I left the United States for good a number of years ago, I've been out of the U.S. for a long time, but when I finally divorced the U.S. for good, the greatest thing I've had is peace of mind that nothing they're going to do is going to affect me in terms of taxes, new regulations, what have you. And so for me, this idea that more countries are going to put on your tax return, or who knows where else, maybe to renew your passport. Who knows where they could put it, right? They could have you make more and more financial disclosures. They can not only use that to tax you, they can use it to regulate you, they can use it to potentially try and confiscate assets, or even if they can't confiscate it, people say, well, how can they take my Bitcoin? It's on a ledger, it's in the safe, everything's written down in a paper wallet. Okay, well, what if they deny you your passport? What if they say, okay, well, you know what? We don't think you're in compliance with tax, because they're already doing that. Countries like the US, if they believe you owe $50,000 or more in tax, they're not going to renew your passport, and they may cancel your current one. Now you're stuck, right? And now the walls can start to close in on you. So that's where it's going to come to, in my perspective, is you're going to have more and more required disclosure. Under the Trump administration, now I know Biden kind of started to walk this back a little bit, but under the Trump administration, they wanted to bring in FinCEN, basically the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, and say, you're going to have to report your Bitcoin holdings to them, your crypto holdings to them, the same way that you have to report offshore bank accounts and other offshore financial accounts to the Treasury. And they were basically going to label an offshore or a crypto holding as an offshore holding and make you report it in the same way. Well, now they know where it is, and now they know where to come after it. Now, Do I think that holding money in offshore bank accounts is good for asset protection? Is good for many other reasons, higher interest rates, stronger banks, whatever? Sure, and so crypto can work the same way, but my goal was never to hide from the tax man. My goal was to protect yourself, to make it harder for people to come after you, to diversify and enjoy the benefits that come with being in different countries. And so I think that, if you want to be able to sleep well, so many people I think that I see out there who I don't believe are reflective of the entire crypto space as a whole, but some of the more vocal voices I sometimes see are never tell anybody, just hide, what are they going to do? And there's this idea that you're smarter than the IRS. Believe me, they've got an entire agency of people whose entire life, and now under the Democrats, just in the US, for example, they want to increase. Elizabeth Warren wants a 30% audit rate. Now, maybe I'm misunderstanding her, but the audit rate right now is like under 1%. And because she basically believes, by her own words, every rich person, which surely if you're holding crypto now, you're a rich person, is a crook, 30% audit rate. Am I missing something? 1 out of every 3 people is going to be audited by the IRS. She wants to hire more agents. Governments around the world are going to have to hire more people to enforce all the taxes they're raising. And so, do you really want to outsmart a litany of people whose entire job it is to come in every day with a chip on their shoulder and think about how they can better take more of your money? I think one of the challenges that a lot of folks, just again, take my native US, have, is they think that there's some kind of privacy in their country as it is. Now, we've seen through all the revelations over the last decade, you really don't have much privacy, but you may have heard of the Bank Secrecy Act in the US. It basically says you have no secrecy, you have no privacy, and you're entitled to none. And so there was a group called Stop Financial Surveillance who came out and said, let us keep our privacy. I said, you already don't have any privacy, right? And they were coming out in response to some of these new proposed regulations where your crypto would have to be reported. And so I really just think it's so much easier, if you don't agree with the values of a society, if you don't agree with the values of a government. If you're an American, you may have to make the choice. Am I moving to Puerto Rico? Am I divorcing the US entirely and perhaps just going to stay out? That's a decision you can make. For now, at least, if you're not an American, if you're from anywhere else, the decision is, I'm just going to move to the Cayman Islands. I'm going to move to Portugal. I'm going to move to somewhere that's much more crypto friendly. And maybe I'll come back later. I'll keep that option open, at least for now. But why do you want to be at odds with a place? Again, if you're not an American, it's a lot easier to say, hey, for the next 5 years, I don't like this government, I'm going to leave, and maybe I'll come back 5 years from now, hopefully wealthier, and hopefully keeping much more of the fruits of that wealth. Now, here's the other thing that concerns me, is we've had great increase in adoption in crypto. What are some of the things you've heard in the interviews we've done with the more corporate people who are buying Bitcoin? Michael Saylor, for example. Hey, we think more regulation is good. I'm not going to keep my $7 gazillion in crypto on a paper wallet. I'm going to keep it somewhere that it is safe, right? And so you're seeing a lot more adoption by big companies. You're seeing more adoption by retail investors. But what does that eventually mean? I remember back in the mid-1990s, my father worked at a radio station, and they had a deal with Prodigy. Remember Prodigy? If you lived in the US, this internet service, dial-up internet service, 33.6K. And the internet back then, the forums, the chat rooms, the content, it was pretty libertarian back there. And I said, wow, this is like really interesting. People are interested in freedom. I was like 11 years old at the time. I said, this seems really strange to me how interested in freedom people are. And he said, yeah, who do you think's on the internet right now? It's the early adopters. It is more libertarian type people. He said, eventually it'll become much more egalitarian, much more liberal as people adopt. And so I kind of think the same thing could happen with cryptocurrency. You say, oh, everyone's getting into crypto. You can buy it on PayPal now. You can buy it at the grocery store, whatever. Well, what does that mean? The fact that the average person is a sheep doesn't change. So what happens when you want to liquidate some of that to buy a property? You say, well, I'll just bypass the government because I'll just, pay someone for real estate in crypto. You might be able to find some of those deals, but is the average person who listens to what the government says, the average person in Europe, for example, who's been listening to the rules that say you cannot sell a car if it's in cash, if it's over 1,000 or 2,000 euros, for example, no cash transactions. The government can simply say, hey, prove to us that you made it through electronic means or we're not going to register your car. They can say the same thing. We're not going to register your house. The idea that stores, that you're going to go to Walmart, you're going to go to a store on the high street in Britain, and they're going to be taking crypto. If the government says, no, don't take it, I'm not saying that the government can regulate crypto out of existence, but they can certainly regulate a lot of people who are afraid and who want to do, what the government says, they can regulate them not taking it. And so the other thing that I hear is, we'll just take loans on your crypto and that'll work. But yet I hear more chatter in some of the tax journals about how they want to tax unrealized capital gains in some countries and make you report. Once you report, now they can check how much you have. And they can say, hey, maybe we're not going to let you take a loan. Because why would the government, at a time when they're desperate for money, their shortfalls have been exacerbated in the last year, they're going to let people just borrow against their assets? Why not change that with things like an unrealized capital gains tax, where if you bought into crypto at 10 grand and now it's 10 million, they don't want you just to peel off $1 million or $2 million. And again, what are you going to buy with that? A real world asset? Now, I think international diversification is important. So if you want to buy real estate around the world, if you want to buy a second citizenship, doing that with money from crypto or crypto directly, I think is a great way to diversify. But if I'm sitting in a Western country like the United States and I'm just thinking, hey, there's no way they can change this. You just take a loan. Just don't report it. Just hide out. I think it's going to be increasingly difficult. And again, simply my perspective. You're welcome to disagree. But I do think that, from a personal perspective, everyone's different. I don't want to be the guy who's waking up in a cold sweat at night. I think being in alignment in life is very important. And if you're not a criminal and you don't want to become a criminal and you don't want to have to look behind your shoulder and you don't have to worry if the tax man is going to find you in 5 years because they're so inefficient, sometimes that's how long it takes, or even longer, to find you. They don't find you in 2 weeks after you don't file your tax return. It can take them a while. Do I want to live in fear? No. And so what am I going to do? I'm going to go where I'm treated best. I'm going to go to a place, if I'm a crypto investor, where they don't want to regulate it. They don't want to tax it. Preferably they're friendly, at least they're neutral. Certainly not going to be in a place where they're trying to ban it. Whether you think that works or not, what kind of a culture is that to live in, where the government thinks that they can do that? What's their next move going to be? It's like so many people in life have bad intentions and they may fail, but if they keep trying, eventually something will stick. And eventually you will, even if nothing sticks, it's like the psycho X, right? Even if they don't do anything to you, just the fact that they're around makes you anxious and miserable, and you're freaking out and you can't think about anything else, and you're probably distracted from making more money or growing as a person. Why do you want to be around that? Why do you want to be around the psycho X? Go where you're treated best. So, as adoption grows, I think you'll see what I call the Texas effect. More people are going to get in. Fantastic. But what's happened in Texas? It's become much more liberal. You're going to see all the sheep, less libertarian. It's going to become more people. The big companies are not going to go against government directives. I think unrealized capital gains taxes may be an issue. I think reporting is definitely already an issue in many places, and that can lead to a lot of things that you may not like. So, if you're looking to avoid taxes, if you're looking to avoid regulations, I don't know about confiscation, but some people would say that as well. If you're looking to avoid those things with your crypto holdings, why not go where you're treated best? And by the way, especially if you're from the US, you'll probably find a lot more exchanges, a lot more opportunities willing to work with you. You can make a lot more money. You can stop being held back. Go where you're treated best. Don't sit around in a place where you're not treated very well and just figure you'll buck the system. I've seen far too many people where eventually it catches up to them. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.